Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Baker McCormick, Commissioner Marecki,
Here.
Commissioner Kinlock has requested to be excused. Commissioner Anderson,
Present.
Vice Chair Bayjun,
Here.
Chair Varga,
Here.
you have a quorum present.
Item.
Next item, item B, Chairwoman's remarks.
I have none.
Next item, item C, approval of the minutes of the June 14th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Been moved and supported. Any corrections? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Item D, unfinished business, there is none. Moving to item E1. Requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022-35-152, reallocating expenditures in the delinquent tax revolving 2020 fund and certifying revenue in the delinquent tax revolving fund 2021 fund.
Thank you. If you have any questions on this, we do have someone on Zoom from the treasurer's office. Any discussion on item 1? Commissioner Anderson?
Just a brief explanation if they could,
Sure.
for someone that might be following it.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah. It's Carl Stafford, Wayne County Treasurer's Office, interim deputy treasurer of financial services. This $100,000 amount was originally included in the budget, but we had the wrong line item number. And the funds will be used to pay for our financial advisor with respect to the issuance of the delinquent tax notes. Any further questions?
Mr. Mark Gabo?
Yeah, if I may add to that, Madam Chair, all they're doing, all the Treasury is doing is moving the money from one bond fund to another to pay debt service. It has virtually zero impact on the budget or on the financial reporting of Treasury.
Thank you very much. We're going to take all the items before we vote on all of them at the same time. Any more questions on item 1? Please read item 2.
Item number 2, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022-35-201, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
You. This is a grant funding for the prosecutor's office, $5,000. Any questions? Item 3, please.
Item 3, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022-35-156, reallocating expenditures in the juvenile justice abuse neglect fund.
Next item, please.
Item 4, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022-35-217, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Any discussion on item? Item, please.
Item 5, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022-35-151, certifying revenue in the delinquent tax unpledged fund.
Any discussion on this one? Marecki?
Could someone explain this?
From the treasurer's office, are you still here?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, it's Carl Stafford again. When we were preparing the budget, we omitted this particular maintenance expenditure, and we're adding it into the budget for this year. The money is being used to pay our contractors to provide maintenance on the foreclosed properties. In addition, $600,000 will be transferred to the Wayne County Land Bank for property maintenance.
So is this just like upkeep, like grass cutting, that type of thing?
Yes, it is grass cutting and boarding up abandoned structures that are foreclosed and is in our inventories
Okay, I don't remember this. We had
every
something
year,
before. Every year we do? Okay.
every year.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baker
To that-
McCormick?
To that point, thank you, Madam Chair. Is the amount always the same or is it fluctuating? Is it higher this year?
No, it's not higher this year. It's typically, we have two contractors and the budgeted amount was sufficient for one contractor. So we added additional funds so that the second contractor would be paid. So it's typically about, for the grass cutting and property maintenance, is typically about $700,000 per year. The amount going to the land bank is generally around $500,000 per year.
And if we needed to reach out to someone in the department in reference to a property that a constituent called on and it needed upkeep of some kind, is there a direct contact for that?
Oh, absolutely. It can be sent to me and I can forward it to the proper person. Yes. It's Carl Stafford,
Carl, I'm sorry, last name?
Stafford.
Bedford. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is this countywide?
This is countywide. Yes,
So it does include the city of Detroit too.
it does.
Good to know. Thank you. Do you have a phone number?
313-224-6732.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
You're welcome.
one more question.
Commissioner Marecki?
So we do this, we give money to the land bank every year?
Yeah, so the process is if after the auction, there's still property in our inventory, that property is transferred to the Wayne County Land Bank. And a part of our agreement with the land bank, we provide funds to maintain those properties until they dispose of them.
Does the money varies every year?
It varies depending upon the amount of properties that are transferred to them. So each year is, since the foreclosure numbers are going down, the actual dollar amount is being reduced per year. So it depends upon how many parcels are transferred for their inventory.
So the land bank doesn't own it.
The land bank absolutely owns it.
The land bank owns the properties.
Yes,
And then we're giving money to the land bank
right.
to maintain the properties that the land bank owns.
Yes, since Wayne County, since the treasurer foreclosed on those properties, rather than having us maintain those properties, they're transferred to the Wayne County Land Bank. Otherwise, they would have no funds to maintain them.
You're done? Okay.
I just
Baker.
wanted to Commissioner Marecki's point. How many properties are in the land bank at this point?
Oh, I don't know for sure. I can provide the numbers. It's probably about 500 parcels or so.
Can we get a list of the properties?
That are in there. I can try to provide that to you, sure.
Thank you.
Just send it to our clerk and then she'll make sure that everyone gets that list.
Okay,
Thank you much. Commissioner Baydoun?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question that I have, this money gets sent to the land bank for maintaining these properties. If there's any leftover money, does it get carried over to the next year?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
When these properties are sold, do we ever get our money back for the property maintenance?
No, we do not.
Huh. Ms. Johnson? You have a comment?
For comment, sure,
Yes,
but I don't want to
please.
just volunteer one.
Yes, please.
So through the chair, we've actually inquired about the transfer of the funds to the land bank in the past and the basis for it, just because the county no longer owns it. This land bank is a separate legal entity, and so when they transfer the properties to the land bank, they transfer title. But then somehow on the back end, the county is actually paying for maintenance for properties that the county no longer owns, that's owned by a separate entity. Now, at one point in time, you may recall that the county actually did an actual budget allocation to the land bank. This seems to be an allocation, but not through the budgeting process. So we have questioned this in the past. I know that Corporation Council had opined and determined that they thought it was proper. It's not clear to me, again, how the county can pay to maintain a separate, and when you sell a property, how can you continue to provide maintenance for it? But another process could be providing the actual budget allocation because of the connection that the county has to the land bank. So there have been questions in the past with regards to this. Not clear why we're still doing it this way, but we have inquired in the past.
Mark, maybe we can look at this during the budget process and see how we could make this a little bit clearer and to the budget director too. Maybe there's a better way of doing this than doing it this way. This seems a little backwards to me. Commissioner Baidoon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. To that point, Alicia brought up a good point. So when these properties are transferred to the land bank, probably, I don't know, for $1 maybe, is that correct? For each
Correct.
property? Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so it gets transferred for $1, and let's say each parcel sells for 5,000 or 10,000 or whatever. So there's money being realized here. Perhaps the money should come back to Wayne County, to our budget for the maintenance that we paid for.
It would make sense to me. I would like to discuss this further. But for this time, I would like to let the contract go forward because I would not want any properties to be, having tall grass and being unboarded if they're open. So my suggestion would be to go ahead and then we would deal with the future.
Madam Chair?
ones on this.
Just as a point of
yes.
clarification, you mentioned a contract. This is actually just a budget item.
The
But I
budget.
do believe that the treasurer has a contract with the land bank for this, which we don't see, yet they're asking you to allocate funds for it. Just
That's-
another item to consider.
I guess what I was trying to get at was we need to see that contract. Please? Can you make that available to us?
yes, I'm pretty sure it's an interlocal agreement.
Okay.
All right.
I would like to at least have the contract number so we could look it up. In the
I will
future, it
provide
doesn't
the
have to be
information.
today. Thank you. Any other discussion on this item, Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Also, the excess that's left, if it doesn't come back to the county, it's left with them, right? And so I'm just wondering how much is spent on maintenance each year? Because are we leaving hundreds of thousands or what's being left behind? So I would be interested in knowing what we actually spend.
We're definitely going to be looking into it during the budget process. So they will probably have to, Mary, they'll have to answer Mark.
Yeah, I
Mark?
mean, and again, I want to remind the commissioners that the land bank is an entity that's incorporated in our financial statements. So there is a level of control that the county exercises over the land bank, although it's a discreetly provided financial statement. It does, there was at one time intent, I mean, their purpose is to deal with foreclosed properties and remove blight from Wayne County. So I think that all has to be incorporated as part of the discussion of the purpose of the land bank, what their their mission is, what their objectives are, what their policies are, and are they fulfilling them? This is a way of funding part of that objective. There was also desire at times with the land bank to move property from Wayne County to be sold by the land bank because there's a provision in state law where they receive 50% of the taxes for the first 5 years for property that's sold through them. There was a specific purpose aside for that. So I think that incorporating all of that as part of the discussion is something that may be very worthwhile.
We'll definitely dive into that. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll put Commissioner Sam Baydoun in charge. I'm going to be delegating for the rest of the year. Next item, please.
Items, excuse me, item 6, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022 35-149, certifying revenue in the general fund.
Any discussion on this item?
Madam Chair, I will move items 1 through 6 to full board for consideration.
That's fine. We may add 7 and 8 on the addenda.
Oh,
to
yes,
it.
I'm sorry. I didn't say that. I'm sorry.
That's
Okay,
okay.
I'll take it back.
We'll move on to the addenda.
Addenda item 7, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2022 35-148, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Question on this item? For copier. Next item.
Item 8, requesting commission approval of Wayne County fiscal year 2020 and 2021 deficit elimination plan.
Your budget director. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, you have to start all over.
Start all over again. I'm Drew Vandegrift, Wayne County Budget Director. Thank you for this time to present the county's deficit elimination plan for the year close out of fiscal 21. As you are aware and will recall, each year a external audit is performed on the county's books, which produces audited financial statements. Those in turn are submitted to the state of Michigan and elsewhere. And so the state of Michigan's local government bureau, under authority from the Glenn Steele Revenue Sharing Act, looks at each of our funds and determines if there is a deficit situation, is the legal term, and that is defined in statute. I would draw a distinction between a spend down in a fund, so like an annual deficit, and a deficit situation, meaning that the actual fund taken into account not only revenues and expenditures, but fund balance turns red. It is negative. We have 3 of those for fiscal 21. Fund 281, Community Corrections, Fund 631, Buildings and Ground Maintenance, as well as Fund 850. These are, I would say a recursive theme. In the Community Corrections, that's 281, and the Buildings and Ground Maintenance, 631. These really are timing issues. We have an opportunity at year end to look and see where we anticipate we will land at fiscal year end. And as you will recall from the financial success of fiscal 21, we had plenty of unassigned fund balance to service these deficits. It was simply an oversight that these were not transferred at that time. Fund 850 on the other end is a bit different. That is a fund where there's a grant that is involved there, and that grant, my understanding, as I've taken some time to inquire and best understand how to prevent this from happening next year in the same funds. It's really that the fund doesn't service all of the administrative costs, and so we budget for it, and then the grants don't pay all of it And then here is the deficit. The plan to correct, it is my judgment and recommendation to you today that instead of utilizing the option for a 5-year deficit elimination plan, that we eliminate these deficits as soon as possible. And so for 281 and 631, you will see a proposed budget adjustment next time that will certify new revenue in the budget and service these deficits so that we won't even have a 2-year plan for those. The plan that is enclosed in before you now for 850, it simply involves ordinary budgeting for 2 years. This will be self-servicing over the next 2 budget cycles. And I think the important lesson for M&B and for me is to make sure that we are appropriately budgeting and funding the EDC in anticipation of this known issue so that it won't happen next year.
Mark Gabo?
I can give the Ways and Means Committee some comfort in knowing that I view what we're doing here more or less just housekeeping. The general fund has a $206 million fund balance. We could eliminate all of these deficits, today if we wanted. It really is just a timing issue on some of them that if we had known that there was a deficit, we probably would have done a budget adjustment timely enough to make sure that on the financial statements, they weren't reported accordingly. But I don't think that this has any effect, and I don't think that there's much consideration given to the fact that there's deficits in these accounts because of the large fund balance that exists in the general fund. And we could eliminate them all immediately if we chose to. I don't have a problem with taking 2 years to deal with economic development.
Sounds good. Any other discussion on this? Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the Economic Development Fund, do we know the reasoning behind the deficit?
Yes, ma'am, we do. There was an anticipation of full coverage for a series of grants, but a portion was ineligible. And so it fell to the bottom line and created the deficit that the state reported.
It was that one grant, 2 grants, or was it all grant
I'd have to take a
related?
look at that. I believe it may have been one, it may have been a series of grants, but the take home point for me is that we have 2 options. We can budget general fund, general purpose to service those ineligible amounts so that there is budget and there won't be a deficit. Alternatively, we can wait and see as the year draws to a close and better understand where we're going to close out our funds at and consider budget adjustments then.
My preference would be pay our bills as we go.
It's very difficult to argue with that. That sounds like a good plan to me too.
Hope we teach that in high school.
This is actually progress. Kevin Haney always wanted to extend it over 5 years, and we were pushing otherwise, but I think 3 years makes sense.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Any other discussion on any of the items 1 through 8? I hear none. Commissioner Baydoun moves.
I will restate my motion to move items 1 through 6 on the agenda and items 7 and 8 on the addenda to the full board for consideration.
It's been moved and supported. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott, Commissioner Baker McCormick,
Yes.
Commissioner Marecki, Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Baydoun,
Yes.
Chair Varga,
Yes.
motion carries. We are now returning to the agenda, item F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none. Mr. Ebo, do you have anything?
Do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next item.
Item G, public comments.
Anyone in the chambers wishing to comment from the public? Anyone wishing to comment? Anyone online by phone or Zoom? Please comment. Anyone wishing to make public comments on Zoom or phone electronically or any other means publicly here? I hear none. Next item.
Item H, adjournment.
Been moved and supported by Martha G. Scott to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.